Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you being here. We are excited that we have a team from Netflix today. We have Donna Wilczek, who is our Chief Product Officer, and we have Jason Owens, who is our IT Asset Management Product Owner. And so I'll let them take it away from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. So great to see everyone in the room today. I'm Donna Wilczek. I am the Chief Product Officer for Oomnitza. And Oomnitza is an IT asset management solution. And I'm joined today with Jason Owens, IT Asset Management Program Owner. So first, I would love to see a show of hands of how many people are either using or have heard about Oomnitza. All right, we got a great number of people, but some people in the room that don't yet know about Oomnitza. We have a great booth, and we are having some wonderful t-shirts if anyone wants to stop by as well later. Oomnitza is IT asset management. So it's taking all of that data that you currently manage in your Jamf solution, all your Mac devices, and it takes that data and it connects it to the rest of your ecosystem, all of your other enterprise assets, to your Intune, to your CrowdStrike, to Rapid7, to countless other solutions, so that you can then automate it and have better data across your enterprise. And Jason's going to talk to us about that in a bit. So normally when I do these fireside chats, we always start with, tell me a little bit about your company. But I don't think anyone in this room needs an introduction to Netflix. I'm obsessed. So instead, Jason, why don't you tell me what you're watching right now?
So right now, we're really fortunate we have content preview as Netflix employees. So I'm from Indianapolis, huge Pacers fan, and as heartbreaking it is, I'm rewatching and reliving the finals run on Starting Five right now. It's worse the second time. So that's what I'm watching right now.
That's what you're watching. I am watching Wednesday season 2. No spoilers because I'm not in it yet. But it's become part of our family. It's a routine. My husband and kids, we sit down and we Netflix and chill. So thank you for that.
Nice.
I always think about, for all of us in the room, the reality is if that our company's IT infrastructure or universities and colleges and education computers are not working, the business and schools are not working. Like Netflix is not putting out content if there are no IT equipment and software running well for the organization. And that's what we're here to talk about, Netflix's road from going from spreadsheets to managing all of this to a more scalable solution with full data accuracy. So Jason, why don't we start at the beginning?
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about your own personal journey to Netflix and also ITAM, IT Asset Management.
Sure, I'd love to. So I consider myself a software asset, and I won't bump the mic anymore. Sorry. I talk
Dennis
with my hands a lot.
Dennis is going to be so mad at us.
I consider myself a software asset manager by trade. Really started and built the software asset management program at Salesforce, where I worked for almost a decade before coming over to Netflix, and had an opportunity and was asked to, hey, why don't you take over the rest of the ITAM house? Moved in to mobility, moved into fixed assets and workstations. And when I left Salesforce, we had a fleet of 485,000 devices across mobile, tablets, AV, and workstations. So it was a pretty sizable fleet, much larger than we have at Netflix. But it came over. Wow, it's been 15 months now. Time flies.
Yeah.
I went from leading a global team with about 60 people, centralized operations across all of our ITAM footprint, to a distributed, federated team. I was the second ITAM employee at Netflix when I joined. We now have 3 people, including myself, in the hardware space, and we stood up some software operations. So we have, I think, 11 now totally. Encompasses the size of my team, but 3 dedicated to hardware, which is really interesting because I never thought that you could run an ITAM program that lean, based on my past experience. One of the great things is that I didn't participate in the selection of Oomnitza. It was the RFQ, RFP went out before I came in, and I wasn't really familiar with the product when I came in on day one. So I had to do quite a bit of learning. I had to get up to speed and had to understand what our roadmap was to really replace an incumbent solution that was highly manual, relied on spreadsheets. All of our partners in our desk side and desktop support teams were literally just using spreadsheets and uploading them into the incumbent solution. So to go from there to rebuild the foundation of what a system of record could be for Netflix over the past 15 months has been great.
That's awesome. So when you joined the Netflix team, what were some of the most important things for your IT asset management program? What did you want it to do?
Well, one of the really great things about Netflix is that we always talk about hiring exceptional talent and we don't throw people at problems. And so it was really critical that we didn't come in and say, okay, we need to hire all of these hardware asset managers to do all of this work. And so what we've been able to do is really lean on Oomnitza's integrations across the board. We are 85% plus macOS fleet, so the Jamf integration is critical for us. The balance of that is Windows, so we also leverage the Intune integration. We don't have an internal CMDB, and we don't have what most folks would consider a true IT service management platform. So it was really critical for us that Oomnitza would serve as our source of truth for hardware in the enterprise.
Yeah. And so obviously, in order for it to be a source of truth, data accuracy is so critical. Can you tell me a little bit about how data accuracy fits into your program?
Yeah, it's really the core of our program. Because we're not doing the operational work of physically boxing and shipping the hardware assets, we have more of an advisory, I wouldn't really call it governance, but it's more of an advisory and an information broker role within Netflix to say, hey, you know, what are you interested in learning and knowing about your assets? Here's what we're seeing are industry trends that you should look at and follow with our IT service management peers. And it really comes down to knowing where what we have is located and where it is in the life cycle. Some of our most critical integrations are the vendor and VAR integrations that we have that are pre-wire. So before the assets even come online, we are getting, depending on the size or depending on the region or the country, we have 4 different integration types. We either have direct API, we have some that are file drops, we have some that are email, just depending on the efficacy level or maturity level of the vendors themselves. You know, you get into some smaller countries and it's a little more difficult to have a VAR with knowledge of API integrations. But that's okay because we have a flexible platform and we can still consume that pre-wired data. And then all of our support teams have visibility through the ZenDesk plugin back into what's in Oomnitza. And so if somebody calls in and says, where's my laptop? Has it been shipped? The data is right there on their screen. They don't have to leave. They don't even have to log into Oomnitza to pull the data because we're surfacing it through the integration.
Yeah, I know as a user that sometimes calls into help desk, it's sometimes frustrating to get the 27 questions.
Let me route you to the ITAM team so they can tell you where the laptop is.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Or what are you running? What software are you running? Yada, yada, yada. So it's nice that it's popping up for those ZenDesk employees, your help desk team. Tell me a little bit about that data accuracy. I know one of the data accuracy things that you do is measure accuracy. Yeah. Where are you currently at with your accuracy rate?
So we're kind of at, it kind of blows me away to even say this, but we're over 2 nines. We're trending towards 3 nines in data accuracy, and that's not just, is the asset deployed, is it at the correct person? But that's, we have, depending on the asset type, we have 7 or 8 data fields that we track, like, is this filled out? Can we service that data? Can we share it? And if it's not, we are reporting and maintaining and updating that on a monthly basis. But the ability to be able to say, hey, we have 99% data accuracy on not just where an asset is, who it's assigned to, but also, you know, what OS is on it, when was the last time it was logged into, all of those things, and to be able to pull and share that with our engineering and service management teams is huge.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing as well, the sharing, taking it out of just the one system and making sure it's available to all. And with that, what's so critical to make sure that actually happens is your integrations and your workflows and automation. Can you talk a little bit about what Netflix has done in terms of that scale?
We could be here all day if I talked about all the integrations and workflows that we've put in, and we're actively putting in more on a weekly basis. We have some really interesting, business process that wasn't well-designed business process. As Netflix has grown, it's all about the growth. And so we have in some regions, they utilize stock rooms for net new assets, where in other regions, there's no stock rooms because everything comes from a VAR. So we've had to build workflows that are region specific based on where the asset comes, what the location type is, and be able to move it into and out of a stock room in order for our accounting team to then be able to say, hey, there's this stock in this stock room. We know about how many we purchase on a quarterly basis. We're not going to purchase any more this quarter. Or alternatively, we have low stock threshold alerts where not just on fixed assets like workstations, but also on peripherals, we've built those workflow notification automations so that the teams get alerts that say, hey, you're down to 7 keyboards left in this room, you need to order some more, which means that we've taken manual labor out of our, we call them TSOS and NTE, but it's our IT service management arm in Intech, and we've been able to take those manual cycle count checks completely off the board for those teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think anytime we can eliminate the manual work and automate it, it's such a big improvement. I think one of the things you talked about is having a multi-instance Jamf deployment. Can you talk about any learnings from that?
Yeah, so for us, it's not that we have our own multi-instance Jamf deployment, it's that we have acquired companies that have their own Jamf instances. And so we've had to be able to use multiple Jamf data sources while we go on that integration journey to bring acquired companies into the fold while we work to replace their assets with Netflix assets. And that still gives us the data visibility that we need to know what's on the wire.
Awesome. Now, I know your team has definitely spent a lot of time and emphasized automation first. If you think about the business impact to Netflix, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's been a couple things. I think having the visibility that we're laying a foundation of IT asset management as a business value driver, not just as a cost, has been really huge. We've been able to really surface vendors that have high retired asset stock counts that they were sitting on and hadn't processed through ITAD yet, something that was not being surfaced in our incumbent system. So we've gone out and found, in some cases, 6 figures in ITAD value just by having visibility to the data. That doesn't even begin to account for some of the other features, and I think we'll talk about Doc Agent in a little bit, but just not having to have a whole team of hardware asset managers doing manual data entry or manual data checking, that's depending on what market they're in, or if they're onshore or offshore, you're talking anywhere from low 6 figures to just shy of 7 figures a year in business value by not having to hire and have those folks on staff.
Yeah, pretty incredible results, I know. I know you have had a long history of IT asset management. You've deployed basically everything under the sun.
Except ServiceNow. That's the only thing I haven't done.
Well, we talked about that. Tell me a little bit about your global rollout. What was that like?
It was not as smooth as it could be, but that was not because of Oomnitza. It was because of our business processes that we had and our regional nuance globally, and how we have different accounting and tax treatment for particular asset types, particularly in EMEA. And so what we had to do was, this was all starting to be rolled out when I got hired, and there was a rollout plan, and we actually took a step back and we rolled out United States and Canada first. And then we rolled out the rest of the globe, which is EMEA and then APAC, about 3 months later, and we took all our lessons learned, and when we rolled out the rest of the globe, we had no issues. And what's really cool is that we initially had pushback from folks that were like, hey, we don't have this feature that we really love that was hard-coded into the old platform, and we really need this. And so we sat down and we talked and we listened. And what it really came down to was that there was kind of like the who moved my cheese concept, and everybody was stuck on a particular feature. But what I really, the analogy that we used when we rolled it out with our global partner teams was, look, we're going from a small craftsman style 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and we're laying the foundation for this asset management mansion. We're not going to have the RV garage out back in day one, right? So what we have to do is we have to lay the foundation. We have to get all the fundamental workflows and data sources and integrations in place. And then we built a whole backlog of what every partner and stakeholder team wanted to see. And that has informed our roadmap. And right now we're working through mobile assets. We're working through AV assets. We have some really high-priced fixed asset monitors that are true scale color correct for video production.
Yeah.
And accounting wants to know where those are at all times. So we're looking at how we bring those in.
Are they in your house?
No. They're too small for me. But yeah, so being able to leverage Oomnitza and not have it just be a laptop, desktop, tablet, phone system, but being able to move into fixed assets, being able to pull in our disparate, we have 4 different AV teams in our IT organization. They all have different functions and they all have different data sources. So we're finishing the discovery this week on how do we pull all those in and present them as a source of truth so that when somebody does call the help desk knows they don't have to then escalate a ticket to the AV team to get help. They have visibility to what those assets are and where they are.
Yeah, and truly, I think Netflix has done such a great job of using that data syndicate into all these different systems and areas. As a chief product officer, one of the things I pride myself on is listening. And I know one of the things we talked a lot about in our customer advisory board last year was around things that could make it less work for administrators. And we created a capability of Doc Agent, which is an AI-based capability that documents the entire configuration of integrations, workflows, fields, et cetera. Tell me about how Netflix is using that and what the impact is.
This is another one of those things I could talk about for a long time because this has unlocked a ton of time for our team. Like I said, including myself, there's only 3 of us on the hardware side. We would have had to hire a technical writer to go through and document all of the configurations, the integrations, the workflow rules, and how they're different across each region. But instead, we were able to run Doc Agent, and it probably saved us 3 to 6 months of tech writer time. And that documentation would have been obsolete as soon as it was written. And so what it allows us to do is to not have to always field in-person questions from our partner teams, is we keep the documentation posted. It's like, hey, if you have questions about it, come to us. But then they have the context around what is deployed and what's in use when they have a question and don't have to wait for us to get back to them. It's been a huge help, both from a case deflection perspective for us, but also just giving visibility and transparency to our business partners.
Yeah, I just love how you're using it, but I also love the partnership and the collaboration and joining these customer advisory boards and flowing the ideas in. And I encourage any customer in the room that's joining us on Thursday for our customer advisory board to really get the ideas flowing, because we know how to build software, but everybody in the room understands exactly what's needed from the product and business needs. So,
and one thing about customer advisory boards, I do it selfishly, candidly. Like, it gives me a better product to sell and gives me more value internally that I can show the entire CIO org, like, hey, this product, we're getting these new incremental value opportunities delivered over the course of the contract, which is huge.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep striving for pragmatic AI that actually solves problems. All right, so let's now talk about security. And risk reduction, obviously, a big need at Netflix and any enterprise company is really this notion that your assets are actually secured. Can you tell me about how better asset visibility has improved Netflix's security posture?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go on a slight tangent
Sure.
before I get to that. I'm really passionate about asset management as one of the best ways to secure the enterprise. And one of the ways that we do that is sometimes asset management programs are sitting in security, and then all they tend to care about is security. Sometimes they sit in finance and all they care about is the dollars. But when you have an ITAM program that sits within a CIO org, you sit at the intersection of all those things and have to care about the end user experience. And so when you have that nexus, what we can then do is say, hey, security, what do you need to see? Accounting, finance, what do you need to see? Risk governance, what do you need to see? And then we're intimately close and familiar with the customer experience, and then we can pull all of those threads together. And so what we're doing right now is we've created, pardon me, I lost my train of thought. I'll get it back. I jumped ahead, that's why I lost it. So with the integrations with the VARs, we have pre-wire visibility to what assets are out in the wild, and we know when they've been shipped and what that tracking information is. We know post-wire, when they go to be destroyed, where they're going, and then we know what certificates of destruction we need to get back. Then we also can say, hey, this device hasn't been online in 30 days. And rather than just relying on the Jamf team or the Intune team or the MDM team to send individual reports to security, we have one consolidated report of devices that haven't been seen in 30 days, which is huge. We're in process right now of standing up lever automation, which is taking that Workday, somebody is no longer with Netflix, and then automatically kicking off workflows, depending on the region, to ship box, return materials, all the collateral needed to get an expedited device return. So there's so many building blocks that we're, like, it really is like asset management Legos that we're putting together to have this entire ecosystem around the device lifecycle.
Yeah, I've never heard it called asset management Legos, but I think you're absolutely right. When you start thinking about the CISO, your CIO, your CFO, and everyone getting kind of their respective needs met. I think one of the conversation I had this morning at the booth several times to Jamf administrators was really around this notion of how do you convince the business that you need this, and how do you demonstrate the value of it? Can you tell me about any recommendations and advice for that?
So that's the $1 million IT asset management question, is how do you surface the value that it provides? There's the hard dollars, the savings as it relates directly to a shortened life cycle, not having as many devices walk out of your environment, having quicker deployment time so you have less employee downtime. Those are all things that can be quantified, but really the most important thing to do as an IT asset manager is to be a good storyteller, to be able to say, here's why this is a business value, because IT asset management is not a cost to a business. It can be a strategic business value driver to unlock investment opportunities in, for example, we are trying to find, we don't have unlimited funds at Netflix, right? So we're always looking for how do we get 6 figures here, 6 figures there to invest in some new AI platform that may really unlock other areas of the business. And one of the ways that we have done that is by finding those nickels and stacking the savings from our hardware asset management and software asset management programs. And then we become seen as a strategic partner to the business, and they're like, oh, let's go talk to them, see if they can find something else for us this week. And then not even that, but then also having a strategic roadmap over the next 18 to 24 months that says, these are the things we're gonna do and deliver, and here's the value we're gonna unlock for the enterprise.
Yeah, and I think that storytelling is so important and so powerful around all of the different places, from the risk reduction to the financial cost savings to security posture improvements and audit readiness. At the end of the day, being audit ready.
Yeah, I think it's easier to be audit ready today in the SaaS space than it was in the past when you had primarily on-prem software. But it's a little more difficult, particularly with some of the regulations in EMEA, to be audit ready on the hardware side today than it ever has been. Particularly with the tax regulations around if somebody takes their phone with them, or if we're covering the cell phone monthly line, we need to be able to report on that percentage. So there's a lot that goes on and goes into that having the data in one place really helps unlock.
Every time I hear the word tax and we're sitting there, I think most people would say it's really a 4-letter word and not a 3-letter word. But yeah, tax implications certainly are something so important. Well, what I'd love to understand is that forward-looking plan and how you're thinking about things like specialized teams, like labs and other areas.
So that's really a good call out. I think I've kind of touched on many of the threads that we're looking, bringing in AV, bringing in fixed assets, some of the higher cost assets. We're looking at taking another step forward with mobility. Right now, it's kind of an option to track. We don't have a direct integration with our mobility asset provider. We're looking at doing that next year. So we'll have a significantly better source of truth for the data coming into Oomnitza rather than, that's one of the things that's still fairly manual today, just because of how every country and carrier is very different. We talked about automating deprovisioning and lever workflows. That's huge. That's going to unlock a ton of time for our TSOS folks. And then really, one thing we actually, it's on here as future looking, but we have unlocked the lit hold visibility surfacing back to our techs as well. So that previously, they had to then go manually check Workday, is this individual on litigation hold? Yes, no, and now it's surfaced right on the case, and they have visibility to that. We're also looking and having conversations around either, do we want to look at a multi-instance setup for some of the highly specialized teams at Netflix, and some of those would be, for example, labs who get a pre-production version of every television that's made, and then these really cool rooms that have hundreds of televisions on the walls where they are running through software version tests on every pre-production model of television that's out there. So you can imagine that tracking those is pretty important.
I know my son wants to tour this soon. Absolutely.
I was in awe the first time I walked into that room because it was just, 100 TVs all running automated test scripts through the Netflix UI UX all at once, and all custom coded on the back end. It's all in-house primary code.
And all serialized and all managed. I know litigation hold was interesting as well, just from a legal perspective, really talking about that value that extends deeper than just an IT organization, but to the legal department as well.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that that's on tap here. What we wanted to do now is open up the room to any questions or conversation that anyone wants to have with Jason. Any thoughts about IT asset management or workflow automation? And Lynn has a microphone, can walk it around.
Yep, I'm happy to come to you if you have a question. Just put your hand up. Okay, great. Oh.
And if you could maybe say your name and where you're from.
Hello, I'm Chris from the Trade Desk. I was just wondering if you guys have leveraged the data center feature stuff at all? The data center feature stuff for Oomnitza?
We have not. We have I may misspeak by saying this, but I want to say we have 0 first-party data centers in the world. And we have, due to the size of our deployments, those teams all have 100% bespoke monitoring and tracking for their space. So we haven't really had those conversations yet.
Yeah.
It's probably still a ways off, but it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing about data centers, sometimes we're hearing from our customers, is that as their cloud costs are starting to spiral, they're starting to look at even taking some of that cloud compute back down to on-prem. So we're seeing a lot of hybrid needs and managing these types of assets. But Chris, happy to talk to you about that more.
Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
I'm firing you, Jason. But that's really the point of the asset management is, anything can be tracked from the physical to the digital realm as well. Question?
Hey. Raj from Coinbase. I had a question of, what do you think is the most beneficial integration you have with Oomnitza currently?
The single most beneficial integration with Oomnitza? That's a great question.
That's a great question.
For us, it's Workday, without a doubt, because we have a crazy amount of information in our Workday instance, down to even some location information that other companies don't necessarily track in Workday. So it really unlocks where an asset is by having that. And then lit hold is tracked in Workday. That's where we service the lit hold information from. So really from like the most important integration, it's definitely Workday.
Yeah. For any customers in the room, we've added some great new features for Workday, including the ability to do more of a webhook real-time data feed. And we're seeing a lot of anomaly detection. For example, users that have been terminated, but they still have their assets, or users that are terminated and are still running their SaaS license, have SaaS license consumption or installed software licenses, or terminated users still showing up on the network, right? So bridging the gap between all these different systems. So any customer that's in the room would love to show you this.
I have a question regarding to the offboarding. So bringing you back to what you just said with, after somebody gets offboarded and they're still accessing their device, have you looked at doing any workflows to where in Workday, once a user is terminated, maybe they move to a different blueprint, or you change the profiles on that device to lock it down?
So we're having, our internal team that manages that is called EMS, and we have a monthly sync with them, and we're having conversations about what does that look like, rather than just doing a lever automation that kicks off the asset return workflow. How do we get closer with them and get them more real-time actionable information? So yes, we want to do that. We're not there yet. It's definitely on our roadmap.
Yeah. And we do have a number of customers that will take data from their HR system, whether Workday or other, and then be able to then run a process flow, which basically sends information to Jamf, to Intune, to any other system to deactivate, as well as the return process and deprovisioning process. Would love to show you that. Yeah, all through APIs. We have about 1,500 connectors and a universal connector as well. So if you can pass data via API, you can connect.
Hi, Chris Lehman, first time, long time. I'm in a thread with my coworkers asking questions, so it's not just me. One of them wants to know if you guys are expanding Doc Agent outside of Oomnitza, because he's very interested in, I've never used Doc Agent before, so I'm not super familiar with what I'm asking, but expanding it outside of Oomnitza to document configs in like other systems and stuff like that.
Okay, so Doc Agent is something we built and we're super proud of. I wish I had it in every application, which documents the configuration. So what we're doing with our AI documentation right now is building it for a compliance management framework. So for NIST, SOC 2, GDPR, countless others, we're basically building a automated compliance documentation framework manager. So you can specify what compliance frameworks are important to you, and then it will automatically track and produce the documentation for that compliance framework. That will be early access program in January, and it's a topic for our customer advisory board on Thursday. We're prioritizing based on our customers what compliance frameworks they need, and then we'll keep adding more and more frameworks.
That's a super interesting question though, Chris. I would love to, we think about how hard it is to manage and maintain documentation across all of our systems. Like if it was generally available, not just within Oomnitza.
Listen, you guys just gave me an idea, so let me go figure out if it's feasible.
It absolutely is an asset.
I think the only limiting factor, because I can tell you, we would be happy to go do that, is what data can be exposed from the third-party ecosystem, right? So if they have an API or APIs that would expose configuration data, we can certainly suck it in and wrap a Doc Agent layer around it. Love the idea.
Hey, I'm Anna from PagerDuty. I'm an IT manager, and I'm a longtime Oomnitza customer. I'm interested in hearing about maybe if you could elaborate your device reclamation strategy at Netflix, and also, secondly, your e-waste strategy as well.
I have completely different thoughts about both of those things than most of what our partners in TE and TSOS do. I would like to see it much more centrally governed and have tighter compliance around how we're managing that. It's kind of that's a 2026 problem for me, is to get a better standardization across the globe. But right now it's about starting the conversation and say, hey, there's 400 laptops sitting with this vendor right now. Why has nobody kicked off an ITAD motion with them? We're just depreciating stuff every month that we could be getting value from. So we're starting conversationally to raise awareness of where we're losing money, with hopefully the intent, and the next step is to have that conversation around how do we do this, maybe not one standard for the entire globe, but how do we have a set of aligned standards, at least within each region, so that we're all doing it fairly similarly.
And Anna, if you stick around after, I can introduce you to a customer here that he runs their program. He'd be happy to talk to you.
Maybe I'll see you Thursday.
And one other thing is, actually, I just completely lost.
I'm
that
sorry,
thought.
I
So,
totally
no.
cut you off. It's my fault. I'm
It's
so
okay.
sorry.
I'm sure I'll think about it. I will remember it by Thursday, I promise.
Okay, maybe some drinks tonight at happy hour.
That might
We'll
loosen it
flow
up
it.
too.
Okay.
Another question down here.
Oh, I actually just remembered it while we're going over there. One really crazy thing at Netflix is we don't have device replacement lifecycle standards. If you want a new laptop and you think that you need more power for your job, you can get a new one every 12 or 13 months if you wanted to. We see that most people tend to replace somewhere between 24 and 34 months. So it's fairly democratic, and there's not anybody that really abuses it, but we keep an eye on it. But that's why we have so much extra non-depreciated value in a lot of our devices, is because we have 14, 15, 16-month-old laptops coming back into the warehouse.
Now, not every customer operates that way, as you can imagine.
We have some super weird niche edge use cases for stuff, so.
Yeah. I think Chris at Trade Desk is like that, but I will side note mention to you, we are working towards a refresh AI generation, so it's not just time-based, but it's behavior and usage-based. And then, yeah, so it's pretty cool, and I would love to chat with you about that. And that'll be here in the May release early access program.
Perfect.
Hi there, Chris from NSF NCAR. One of the kind of brain thought pieces, I know this is a struggle for at least some organizations that I work with, is once the life cycle ends on a device, the release process from ABM is a huge critical component for us, because in the past, with at least the Intel platforms, you could spoof serial numbers and have things come back into your environment. Nothing like waking up and having Russia in your system for no reason. How has either Netflix or Oomnitza looked at how do you handle that process of releasing objects from ABM once that device cycle's over?
So our engineering team, or that we partner with, not my engineering team, but they partner really closely with us. They're doing a discovery spike right now on the ABM integration to see if we can fully automate that.
Yeah. Also, new at Oomnitza in our early access program right now is something called anomaly detection. An anomaly detection will identify scenarios such as asset on the network that is also sitting in inventory. So how can those two things be true? Either it is being spoofed or it was provisioned improperly. Either way, it's an anomaly that should be looked at. Similarly, those types of scenarios. And I always call these the needle in the haystack scenarios. The best thing I can recommend to anyone in this room is, like, if there are anomalies that you would want coded, please tell me what they are. because we have a long list our customers have given us, and now we're just literally coding new anomalies, and then they show up as, hey, go take a look at this when you wake up in the morning.
And I'm like a little off the cuff commentary. That's one of the reasons I'm here, is because of how willing Oomnitza has been to invest and release features that we need in our environment to do our job. And you actually listen, which not every third-party SaaS provider out there does that.
I appreciate that. My goal always is that we don't build fluff. We literally build pragmatic features and technology, so thanks for that. But anomalies, if anyone has like crazy anomalies that you've seen, I'd love to hear about them.
I know someone talked about happy hour, so I don't want to keep you from happy hour, but
As you can tell, our happy hour is like filled with, okay, what's the craziest anomaly you've ever seen?
but do we have any other questions?
And
It sounds like these folks are happy to stay around as well too. So
Were you going to say
that's what I was going to say. I was happy to stay around, happy to share contact information if anybody wants to, connect on LinkedIn or chat later.
Yeah, please do connect. Thank
thank you
so
guys
much,
for
everyone.
presenting, and
Thank you,
thanks
Lynn.
everybody for
Jason,
being here.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.